And so we see clearly that many are in doubt about this hour. But we understand that judgment is imminent. وَيَوْمَ تَقُمُ السَّاعَةُ يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ كَذَلِكَ كَانُوا يُؤْفَكُونَ. And so we find written in the Quran, on the day that the hour of reckoning will be established, the transgressors will swear that they tarried not but an hour. Thus were they used to being deluded. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ وَالْإِيمَانَ لَقَدْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا يَوْمَ الْبَعْثِ فَهَذَا يَوْمُ الْبَعْثِ وَلَكِنَّكُمْ كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. But those endued with knowledge and faith will say, indeed, ye tarried within Allah's decree to the day of resurrection, and this is the day of resurrection, but ye were not aware. So even though we see that the world is dealing with a psychology of denial, and they operate in a full-fledged condition of psychosis, this is a sign of the hour. Ignorance has become the theme of the day, and it has taken center stage in the world. And this psychosis will be in operation to such a degree that the hour of judgment and the resurrection will come upon these people while they are yet unaware. Why? Because they've been sealed. Allah has shut their hearing and their sight, and He has closed off their spiritual faculties, and they have been shut out of the presence of the Most High and are no longer able to recognize the times and discern the signs. And so as believers, we cannot take our cue from those who do not believe, because we understand that they cannot even see what is happening around them. And He says that at this time, because what we must understand, that these signs of the day of judgment are also the signs of the reappearance of the Mahdi, and also the indication and sign of the presence of the Dajjal. As we understand that the Mahdi is the first of the signs of the day of judgment. And so we understand that we are living in that time. And we understand that the moral and ethical level of the people, it's at its lowest. And the whole world is marred in the filths of ignorance. And so we understand that this is why at this particular time in history that we see the world in a deep divine chastisement, as it has been written. And so the hadith concerning this time indicate to us that meanness and greed will multiply, and that days of anarchy and disorder will be close to the day of judgment. The coming of Hazrat Mahdi is the first of the portents of the day of judgment. And we recognize that at the beginning of his advent, people will not recognize that he is present, because they will be inundated in their sins and apostasy. Hadith tells us that we will be in a time and a condition of utter confusion and disorder, and at that time, tribulation will appear. Business will be stagnant. Everyone will complain, I cannot sell or buy or earn anything. Great cities will be ruined as if they had not existed yesterday. In this particular period of time that we're living in now, it was foretold. In the end times, men will come forth who fraudulently use religion for worldly ends and wear sheep's skins in public to display meekness. That is the case today. And their hearts will be as hard as the hearts of wolves, and hunger and the cost of living will prevail. And everyone will be complaining of low earnings. And the tongues of the hypocrites will be sweeter than sugar.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Sticky for a decade, and Gen Z and millennials are to blame, says Fortune magazine. It's our fault again. But wait, why is it our fault? Well, according to Fortune, it's because we're spending all our money on necessities. In other words, Gen Z and millennials are so broke that we're spending all our money on food and housing instead of like luxury items. The main takeaway here is that inflation isn't going away anytime soon. But not to worry, the 1% have some advice for us peasants. Just don't eat. To save money, maybe you should skip breakfast. Intermittent fasting, am I right? Come on, kids. Instead of spending your money on necessities like food, you should buy some junk to help me and my executive friends buy a new yacht. Just change the name of America to AmeriCorp, since we're just 5 companies in a trench coat pretending to be a country.
Struggling and drowning, all right? So we struggled and it was tough, but you know what? We made it. We knew there was a light at the end of the tunnel with our struggle. It seems like kids today, no matter how much they struggle, they just get further and further down the water into the drowning point, all right? When I was their age, I was making less than $10 an hour, and I could afford to live on my own. Now you have to be making 6-figure salary to get a decent, tiny little place to live. So what the fuck is going on, and how do we help them as parents? I told my son, all you have to do is work hard, go to college, or join the military like I did. He went to college, got his degree, got a full-time job. He moved back in with me right when he graduated from college because he said, hey, Mom, as soon as I get a job. And all they see when they come home is they watch social media, kids their age, on lavish vacations with all this money and nothing to do, all these social media influencers, because we value those types of things over hard workers. We will pay them $10,000, but you'll work 40 hours a week, you can't afford it.
Guys, I don't know how the average American is making it right now, because from the looks of it, things are just going to hell. For example, if you want to rent an apartment, the landlord wants proof of income 3 times the rent. And out here in northern New Jersey, that means a 1-bedroom, you got to be making 30 to 50% more than the national average. The groceries have gone up like crazy. It's like, it seems like it keeps creeping up ever so slightly, but after 3-4 months, you feel like it's you feel the increase. Because last year, I would be shopping for my have gone up like crazy. It's like, it seems like it keeps creeping up ever so slightly, but after 3-4 months, you feel like you feel the increase. Because last year, I would be shopping for myself alone twice a week, and it would run me about $80 each trip. Now it's costing me like $125 to $140 per trip. And when I include going out maybe once or twice a week to eat, my total for food is coming out to be crazy. It's over $1,000. And I know it wasn't like that growing up, you know, it's gotten out of hand. But people are walking around like nothing's wrong, everything is fine, everything's dandy. But it won't be long before people are going to have to decide whether to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, or feed their families. And of course, people are going to choose to feed their families. And so, who knows what's going to happen. But I was at the mall the other day and it was pretty packed. But there wasn't really that many people holding bags. It was just people hanging around window shopping, which doesn't mean squat. It just means people want to get out of their houses and hang around, maybe eat at the food court. And that the food court was popping, of course. But we're going to have to wait and see. I foresee a lot more shoplifting, a lot of stores going out of business because of that. And there's going to be a lot of break-ins, a lot of cars being stolen, a lot of parts being stolen, wheels, catalytic converters, which is already happening, but it's going to, like, you know, more and more people are going to want to do it because they have no other way. More and more people are going to turn to scamming and stealing and all that stuff.
Skyrocketing, and we were all like, hey, this is corporate greed, but then we were gaslit by US government officials and economists who said it was all in our heads. It turns out it's not in our heads. Greed inflation is real. Financial experts were not just denying that corporate profits were causing inflation, they were actually blaming consumers, which is like peak gaslighting. Like, toxic boyfriends should study this communication tactic because we all sort of believe the financial experts. Now a lot of financial experts are like, wait, this greed inflation thing is not a fringe theory. So here's the deal. Even though inflation is coming down, it's still really high. And the former vice chair of the Fed was like, hey, it's not people getting higher wages that's driving inflation. Instead, she says what's making everything expensive is something called price-to-price spiral, which is basically price gouging. Companies just mark up the cost of their products and services even though their input cost hasn't increased. This guy is a famous economist, and he was even like, profit margins have led to inflation. And this was getting really egregious in 2022 when retailers and some consumer brand companies were convincing their shoppers that, hey, we have no choice, we just have to raise prices, which is actually not true. And the thing is, a lot of companies started convincing us that this is just how it works. Everything has to go up in price and we have to accept it. Technically, that's not how economics works. There's this saying that economists like to say, especially in colleges, where high prices are cured by high prices, which means that a company can only make something as expensive as a customer is willing to pay. So what does this mean for you? Everything is very expensive, and those costs are not necessarily justified.
Got the word to plant the seed, give them just what they need. A little ghetto gospel, straight from the apostle. Straight up, keep it real. Kicking prophecy that you can feel. Build a sign and open up the seal.